Our first 6 books embrace the events and legends previous to the Trojan War, the first 3 setting forth the antiquities of the barbarians, and the next 3 almost exclusively those of the Greeks. Diodorus 1.46. The foregoing is told by Diodorus in the 3rd book of his history, and the same writer, in the 6th book as well, confirms the same view regarding the gods, drawing from the writing of Euhemerus of Messene and using the following words: "As regards the gods, then, men of ancient times have handed down to later generations 2 different conceptions. Certain of the gods, they say, are eternal and imperishable, such as the sun and moon and the other stars of the heavens, and the winds as well, and whatever else possesses a nature similar to theirs. For of each of these, the genesis and duration are from everlasting to everlasting. But the other gods, we are told, were terrestrial beings who attained to immortal honor and fame because of their benefactions to mankind, such as Heracles, Dionysus, Aristeas, and the others who are like them. Regarding these terrestrial gods, many and varying accounts have been handed down by the writers of history and mythology. Of the historians, Euhemerus, who composed the sacred history, has written a special treatise about them, while of the writers of myths, Homer and Hesiod and Orpheus and the others of their kind have invented rather monstrous stories about the gods. But for our part, we shall endeavor to run over briefly the accounts which both groups of writers have given, aiming at due proportion in our exposition. Now, Euhemerus, who was a friend of King Cassander and was required by him to perform certain affairs of state and to make great journeys abroad, says that he travelled southward as far as the ocean. For setting sail from Arabia, the blessed he voyaged through the ocean for a considerable number of days, and was carried to the shore of some islands in the sea, one of which bore the name of Panchaea. On this island he saw the Panchaeans who dwell there, who excel in piety and honor the gods with the most magnificent sacrifices and with remarkable votive offerings of silver and of gold. The island is sacred to the gods, and there are a number of other objects on it which are admired both for their antiquity and for the great skill of their workmanship, regarding which severally we have written in the preceding books. There is also on the island, situated upon an exceedingly high hill, a sanctuary of Zeus Trophilius, which was established by him during the time when he was king of all the inhabited world and was still in the company of men. And in this temple there is a stele of gold on which is inscribed in summary, in the writing employed by the Panchaeans, the deeds of Uranus and Cronus and Zeus. Euhemerus goes on to say that Uranus was the first to be king, that he was an honorable man and beneficent, who was versed in the movement of the stars, and that he was also the first to honor the gods of the heavens with sacrifices, whence he was called Uranus or heaven. There were born to him by his wife Hestia 2 sons, Titan and Cronus, and 2 daughters, Rhea and Demeter. Cronus became king after Uranus, and marrying Rhea, he begat Zeus and Hera and Poseidon. And Zeus, on succeeding to the kingship, married Hera and Demeter and Themis, and by them he had children, the Curetes by the first named, Persephone by the second, and Athena by the third. And going to Babylon, he was entertained by Belus, and after that he went to the island of Panchaea, which lies in the ocean, and here he set up an altar to Uranus, the founder of his family. From there he passed through Syria and came to Cassius, who was ruler of Syria at that time, and who gave his name to Mit, Cassius. And coming to Cilicia, he conquered in battle Celix, the governor of the region, and he visited very many other nations, all of which paid honor to him and publicly proclaimed him a god. After recounting what I have given and more to the same effect about the gods, as if about mortal men, Diodorus goes on to say, "Now regarding Euhemerus, who composed the sacred history, we shall rest content with what has been said, and shall endeavor to run over briefly the myths which the Greeks recount concerning the gods, as they are given by Hesiod and Homer and Orpheus." Thereupon Diodorus goes on to add the myths as the poets give them. Regarding the gods, the most learned Diodorus also says in his writings that those gods whom men were wont to address as immortal, considering them to be so because of their beneficences, had indeed been born human beings, but that certain of them had acquired the appellations they have after the lands they conquered. Diodorus says, following the account preserved in the myths that Xanthus and Balius were formerly Titans and had come to the aid of Zeus, Xanthus as a companion of Poseidon and Balius of Zeus, and in the battle they asked that their shape might be changed, since they were ashamed to be seen by their brethren the Titans, and their request was granted, and it was these horses which were given to Peleus. This explains, Diodorus says, why Xanthus is able to prophesy his death to Achilles. Pherecydes records that Saturnus was the first, before all others, to wear a crown, and Diodorus relates that, after he had defeated the Titans, Jupiter was rewarded by the rest with this same distinction. The same writer gives even to Priapus Philes and to Ariadne a wreath made of gold and precious stones from India, this wreath becoming also a distinction of Vulcan, and then of Liber, and later a constellation. Ninus's brother, Picus, who was also called Zeus, but also king of Italy, holding sway over the west for 120 years. And he had many sons and daughters by the most comely women, for he assumed in some cases mysterious aspects when seducing them. And these women, when they were being debauched by him, looked upon him as a god. This same Picus, who was also called Zeus, had a son named Faunus, whom he also called Hermes for the name of the wandering star. And when Zeus was on the point of death, he gave orders that his remains be laid away on the island of Crete, and his sons built him a temple there, in which they laid him. This monument exists even to the present day, and it bears the inscription, "Here lies Picus, whom men also call Zeus." Diodorus, the most learned chronographer, has composed an account of this Picus. According to tradition, Castor and Polydeuces, who are also known as the Dioscuri, far surpassed all other men in valor, and gained the greatest distinction in the campaign in which they took part with the Argonauts, and they have come to the aid of many who have stood in need of succor. And, speaking generally, their manly spirit and skill as generals, and their justice and piety as well, have won them fame among practically all men, since they make their appearance as helpers of those who fall into unexpected perils. Moreover, because of their exceptional valor, they have been judged to be sons of Zeus, and when they departed from among mankind, they attained to immortal honors. Epopeius, the king of Sicyon, challenged the gods to battle and violated their sanctuaries and altars. Sisyphus, we are told, excelled all other men in knavery and ingenuity, and by means of his skill in divination by inspection of victims, he discovered everything that was to happen and foretold it to mankind. Salmoneus was impious and arrogant, and made it his practice to ridicule the divinity, and he declared that his achievements excelled those of Zeus. Consequently, he used to make a tremendous noise by means of a machine he contrived, and to imitate in this way peals of thunder, and he would celebrate neither sacrifices nor festival. The same Salmoneus had a daughter named Tyro, who received this name by reason of the whiteness and softness of her body. For Salmoneus, being impious and arrogant, made it his practice to ridicule the divinity, and to declare that his achievements excelled those of Zeus. Consequently, he used to make a tremendous noise by means of a machine he contrived, and by imitating claps of thunder, he would declare that he had thundered more loudly than Zeus. Speaking generally, in his mockery of the gods, he would celebrate neither sacrifices nor festivals in their honor, as the other rulers were accustomed to do. And there was born to him an only daughter, Tyro, to whom he thought this name was appropriate by reason of the softness of her body and the whiteness of her skin. Poseidon became enamored of this maiden because of her beauty, and lying with her, he begat Peleus and Neleus. And Salmoneus, not believing that it was Poseidon who had taken her virginity, would not leave off ill-treating Tyro, but in the end he paid the penalty to the deity for his impiety, ending his life when struck by lightning from the hand of Zeus. Of the sons born of Poseidon and Tyro, Peleus, when very young, was banished from his native land by Mimas, and going into exile together with his friends, he seized, with their aid, 2 islands, Cyathos and Peparathios. But at a later time, since Chiron conferred benefactions upon him and shared his own country with him, he departed from the islands we have mentioned, and became king of the city of Iolce. And there were born to him a number of daughters who took their name from their father, being called the Pleiades, regarding whom we shall rest content with what has been said. Admetus was very dear to the gods because of his unusual righteousness and piety. His uprightness brought him such honor that once, when Apollo had offended Zeus, the command was given him that he should serve as a menial at the court of Admetus. And we are told that Alcestis, the daughter of Peleus, who was the only one of his daughters who had no part in the impiety practiced upon their father, was given as a wife to Admetus because of her piety. Melampus was a man of exceptional piety and became a friend of Apollo. Bellerophon, who was in exile because of a murder he had unwittingly committed, came to Proetus, who exchanged hospitality with his father, and the wife of Proetus became enamored of Bellerophon because of his beauty, and since she was unable to win him by persuasion, she accused him to her husband of having offered violence to her. Now Proetus was unwilling to slay his guest, and so instead he sent him to Lycia, having a written message to Iobates the king, who was his father-in-law. Iobates received the letter, and discovered that in it was written that he should slay Bellerophon with all speed, but, being unwilling to put him to death, he commanded him instead to go join combat with the fire-breathing Chimera. The Loeb Editor's Notes, 1 Chaps. 56-61, in which Diodorus purports to give the account of the Atlanteans regarding the origin of the gods. 2 CP. 210, none. 3. The first to become king of Macedonia after the death of Alexander. He was generally recognized as king in 301 BC and held the throne until his death in 297. 4 Kep E. Book 5.41-46. 5 Jebel El, Accra, a mountain nearly 6,000 feet high on the coast a few miles south of the mouth of the Orontes. It is the most conspicuous landmark of North Syria, its summit commanding a view of Cyprus and the Taurus Mountains. Hadrian once climbed the mountain to view the spectacle of the sunrise from it. It is the Mount Cassius Old of Paradise Lost, 2.593. 6. The Horses of Achilles, Iliad, 19.400. 7. Between Zeus and the Titans. 8. The constellation of the Northern Crown, still sometimes called Ariadne's Crown. Seep. Ovid, Fasti, 3.459, 561. Metum. 8.176f. Thayer's Note. For full details and some further citations, see Allen's star names, SUV, Corona Borealis. 9 students of euhemerism will be interested in the note on Picus in M.P. Nilsson, The Minoan Mycenaean Religion, 483. 10. Mercury. 11 i.e. To Mariners and Storms, Kef. Book 4.432, and note. 12 Key. Book 4.68. 13 Turos means cheese. 14 This last clause may have been added by the excerptor. 15 or better of Iolcus in Thessaly. 16 CP. Book 4.50f. 17 Zeus became annoyed at Asclepius, Apollo's son, who had discovered the healing art because he was bringing the dead to life, and slew him with a thunderbolt. Apollo, in revenge, slew the Cyclopes, sons of Zeus, who, in their workshop under Mede, Aetna, forged the thunderbolts of Zeus. 18 CP. Book 4.51f. 19 CP. The Iliad, 6.152f. The previous next to images with borders lead to more information. The thicker the border, the more information. Details here, up to Diodorus Classical Texts Lacuscurtius Home. A page or image on this site is in the public domain only if its URL has a total of 1 asterisk. If the URL has 2 dasterisks, the item is copyright someone else and used by permission or fair use. If the URL has none, the item is C. Bill Thayer. See my copyright page for details and contact information. Page updated, 31 May 17.